Judas is not remembered for ignorance. He is remembered for betrayal. That alone says something important about human nature. Judas walked beside Christ and still traded what was sacred for silver. He heard the same words the other disciples heard, witnessed the same things, stood in the same presence. None of it mattered once corruption took hold internally. That's the warning inside the story. Human beings like imagining betrayal as something obvious, a villain announcing themselves openly, darkness appearing from a distance. Reality is rarely that clean. Most corruption enters quietly through weakness of character, ego, greed, resentment, self-interest, the slow prioritizing of temporary gain over principle. That's why the Judas archetype survived for thousands of years. People still repeat the pattern constantly. Selling integrity for approval. Selling loyalty for advantage. Selling truth for comfort. Trading long-term meaning for short-term reward. The transaction never disappeared. Only the silver changed form. And betrayal rarely begins with the final action itself. The mind usually drifts there gradually. Small compromises, repeated long enough, start reshaping character underneath the awareness. Hermetic philosophy understood something important about this. As within, so without. A divided inner world eventually creates divided behavior. Someone internally consumed by envy eventually acts through envy. Someone ruled by greed eventually sacrifices things that should never be sacrificed. Human beings become shaped by the patterns they feed repeatedly. That's psychological law as much as spiritual law. Carl Jung warned people about the shadow for the same reason. Traits ignored consciously do not disappear. They grow underneath awareness. A person convinced of their own purity becomes dangerous quickly because they stop examining themselves honestly. That's how corruption deepens. Not all at once, quietly. One rationalization at a time. One compromise at a time. One betrayal of conscience at a time. And eventually the person no longer recognizes themselves clearly. That's what makes Judas disturbing psychologically. He stood close to something sacred while drifting further away from it internally. Proximity means nothing without integrity. A person can speak truth constantly and still betray it through action. They can surround themselves with wisdom while remaining internally ruled by ego and appetite. That pattern exists everywhere now. Politics, business, friendships, relationships. Public figures preaching values they do not live by. People demanding honesty while lying constantly themselves. Human nature has not changed much. And eventually corruption turns inward too. That's the part people overlook. The nervous system remembers repeated action. The conscience remembers repeated compromise. A person can escape consequences externally sometimes. But internally the mind reshapes itself around whatever it repeatedly chooses. Greed changes people. Envy changes people. Deception changes people. Over time the mask and the face become the same thing. That's why ancient traditions focused so heavily on guarding the inner world. Not only behavior, but intention. Not only image, but character. Because eventually human beings become whatever they repeatedly practice. That's the real warning of Judas. The destruction that begins the moment a person trades what is sacred for something temporary.